Hola all, welcome back to Soul Mechanics. This is somewhat of a special one considering that I am cooking in my own kitchen this time. We're making Brussels sprouts with lemon pepper marinade pork chops and onions and fixins and corn and such. It's just, we're cooking in the crock pot, so I mean, we're going to cook the Brussels sprouts elsewhere, and I'm going to make some rice with corn and such, and onions maybe, but that's what we're doing now. I wanted to make this video is specifically, it's for everybody, but it's specifically for our resident chemist, and turn about one of our lead investigators. She's bitchin', she's amazing. I call her Little Washu, you don't need to know her actual name. But she's kind of an old friend. She returned. She was gone for a while, and she returned. So hello, madam. And she likes to dissect my identity, and that's really fun. I love that. She's helping out a lot, so she's a cool guy. Anyways, I wanted to try to speak to my consideration of reality and how it operates, essentially. This, of course, is going to fall into the principal dynamics course under soul casting or spot casting. Spot casting. Soul casting is kind of a different subject. Soul casting is going to be referring to the concept of magic and how that operates. Actual magic like spellcrafting and whatnot, which does work, and we can explain why. What we're going to do. But, anyways, I told her that my consideration, that being that I came up in... I'm also making peanut butter cookies with peanut butter and with white chips. That's actual, like, Reese's cookies. So fucking awesome. Anyways, I told her that, being that I come up, my upbringing, whatnot, my training, really, I was isolated for most of my life. I was on Ritalin, and it has a bad reaction with my genetics, I guess, and it causes memory loss and all kinds of other problems. So I had a lot of memory loss when I was a kid, and I didn't interact with anybody. I was very, I was like not really there, so I was kind of hiding away, and I didn't really interact with people. And when I actually came to life and woke up and started being me, that was when I met my spotter Ariel, and she started training me, and synchronicities come into play, and I just started learning that way, and that's pretty much how I started teaching myself and how I started bringing myself up, was via synchronicity and through this training that Ariel was passing our elder traditions and heritage on to me from her family. It was a family thing for her. Like, people thought that her household, her family, was a coven of witches, but really it was her mom was married to another woman, or they were domestic partners rather, and they had brought her up in these traditions, and Hinduism, Taoism, the practices regarding synchronicity and whatnot, and the understanding of it, which synchronicity was coined again by Carl Jung fairly recently, but that's, in terms of psychiatry and whatnot, that's a psychological, but categorizing it as psychology, whereas the actual happening and understanding of synchronicity is going way back, way back, before biblical times, before recorded history. We have this understanding. The elder traditions have been working with this essentially magic. It's a magical technology. It is our resource technology as conscious beings. Now, quantum mechanics is starting to catch up with this. We had relativity operating for a while, and relativity works. Honestly, I think we should just tune up relativity. I think that directive relativity would be our best bet at getting to a unified theory of everything. Just me, though. It's your call. Go ahead and make whatever decisions you want to, which quantum mechanics is starting to catch up by determining that reality itself is made of information. That's what they're going to tell you. But information is just information. What is information? Like, for example, speaking of this, an example is the simulation theory. Example of what I'm getting at. I mean, the simulation theory, where they say that, they actually think that the universe is, because it's made of information, the universe is a simulation that's transpiring on some kind of supercomputer in another universe. Now, it's a stretch for me, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you why. I'd like to raise a query that I don't think they've really caught on to yet, but is pertinent to that discussion. If it's a simulation of what? Because this is the universe. This is reality. What the fuck would we be simulating? That's kind of an absurd concept. I mean, it's very simple if you just cut back to the God concept, essentially. And I mean from before Christianity ruined it. Not some biblical tyrant dictator God. The actual concept of an existing God, which in and of itself is consciousness. Being, observation, the observer, the director, which... that they have trouble with this. Quantum mechanics has trouble with this because the observer principle, which again it's not the observer principle yet, but it will be. The observer principle dictates that when your observation causes for the wave function to collapse into particles, which the wave function again is defining what. We're coming back to this what. It all comes back to nothing. And ultimately I think relativity is the key because what it is essentially is association. It's relationships. That's what creates reality. That's what makes information happen, is associations, reflection. So, that's going to be the key to it going forward in the future, but I don't think they'll catch on to that for a while, and they don't listen to me, so whatever. But, where was I at? So, I told Little Washu that I thought... My consideration being that I have this background, that I'm not, I've always understood it as being common sense that we're all part of one soul, that we're all part of one thing, one entity, and of course I think of this as identity. I don't, I lean. Obviously, there's biology, there's physiology in play. That's something that's happening. That's what's emerging. Biology, chemistry is emerging. That's chemistry essentially, from my point of view, is going to be a measure by which we define what's happening. It's like you have consciousness in play and it's creating something, it's reflecting off of itself and it's creating this biological function, and chemistry coming into play to make feelings happen and such, to release hormones, to cause for the functions of the body to transpire. That's just an explanation as to how and why it happens. The reason, the actual reason for it, the value in play, exists first, and that is what's information. Values are in play, and values are just reflective considerations. They're our dream. They're what we want to make happen, what we desire, what we understand. We create a definitive understanding of something by producing this value from out of nowhere. It's invented on the spot. And we have values in play that create definitions, and the associations and relationships of value is what's going to create, definitions. That's what is happening. Like the two hemispheres of the brain firing off of each other. The duality, the defined dichotomy, is reflection itself. It's two things that bounce off of each other and create a third thing, and we have that Holy Trinity. Which again, is not biblical. These are things that go way back before Christianity is a stupid idea. Christianity is just a ridiculously stupid idea. That's all. It doesn't even come close. The Bible does have a lot of good values in it, though. You can find values, and that's the point of speaking to how it's operating from what you could say is a superconscious perspective. As I was saying, quantum mechanics has trouble with understanding the concept of a God because the observer principle dictates that our observation collapses the wave function, yet our observation collapses the wave function. So if there's an ultimate God watching over us, why is it not collapsing? This can be explained. I'm not going to get into it here, but that can be explained. The point being that there is in fact a superconscious entity. There is an overall soul. We are all part of one soul, one mind, one dream. But we're in play in the game. We're what's causing the wave function to collapse because we are the players in the game. And this consciousness, this overall consciousness, tunes into, it's not like you're a separate soul from other people. It's like you're just, consciousness is tuning into your brain, your nervous system, your chakra system, and it's creating an identity. It's creating a personality based on all the values that are lining up in your system. So, You are consciousness becoming a person, a personality, an individual personality. But you're still very much connected with everyone else via this overall consciousness. And I told her that I thought of reality as being created by thought over matter, which, instead of using matter, I kind of tend to use thought. And that's getting back to what spot casting is. Now, you can place values in the environment, and if you know people, if you know how a person's value system is coordinated, if you know anything about them just well enough, if you know, like, for example, what their general interests are, that's enough. If you know that, you can place values in their path that will direct their attention. And if you know how to, like, if you're capable of kind of seeing forward, if you know a person well enough to know what they're going to do in reaction to the values you put in play, then you can calculate the probabilities of what's going to happen, and you can orchestrate synchronicities. So that's what we're talking about when we speak to spot casting, is getting back to what we talked about, primers and cueing. And there was a primers and cueing video. Obviously, it wasn't too good, and it was kind of long, but it dragged on. But the intuition videos, those explain primers and cueing very well and quickly and easily. So having primers and cues in play. Cues, obviously, as I've stated before, are the objects of inference, or the articles of inquiry that are put in play, like where I have the black cats. I keep coming back to that. I'm sorry, I keep repeating myself, but that's how it works. You gotta keep repeating yourself, or people just won't fucking get it. These values are so simple that they just don't stick to people, and we're conditioned. We are actually, social programming has us conditioned to discard these values as they come along. So it's very difficult to get them to stick in a personality. You got to keep repeating yourself over and over again. Unless the person has genuine interest for it, then it's going to stick, because that's how it works. That's what a spotter does, essentially, is try to build interest, try to get somebody interested in these things, and then they'll get it on their own. We don't teach them anything, really. They teach themselves. We just kind of train them to be interested in things that actually matter, instead of, fucking playing video games all the time or what have you. Which video games are going to have values in them. Everything has values in them. As I was saying about the Bible, has values in it that come across, and the actual true values that present, a working reality, which ultimately, getting down to information, itself, our concept that information is what reality is made of. It's information of what? It's coming back to nothing. It defines nothing. It defines the emergence of an association, just a reflective consideration. So, it's mind, it's psyche that's creating everything. It's consciousness. But, values that hold meaning for you, and again, what I'm trying to say, sorry, I fucked up. What I was trying to say is that, coming down to consciousness being the bottom line and information creating reality, what we have here is just pretty much a concept that physics itself is defined by our determination. It's decision, not information. It's decision or direction that creates reality. And there would be no underlying operating system. There's nothing fixed. There is no actual bottom line rock hard physics in play. It's created by us. It's being created by us, and our overall understanding of it is what holds it in place. That's all. Unless you want to think that, there's aliens out there and there are other civilizations that are assisting us in this, that are a part of this consciousness, which obviously I think we do. I think there are. There's no reason not to. We have evidence everywhere of aliens existing, at least in the past. So, it's really ridiculous for people to look at that and say, no, there's no way. Why? What makes you think there isn't? Seriously. Get back to scratch. Take a look at the evidence and ask yourself, what the fuck would make you think there isn't, other than other people having told you repeatedly that there isn't, because they're hiding it. And we know they're hiding it. It's obvious. It's really stupid to look at things. It's really stupid to look at evidences of things and suggest to yourself for whatever reason that it can't be true because social programming has conditioned you to think that way. Gotta wake up, snap to, move faster. In any case, I think that what the idea again is that there is no actual rock hard bottom line physics, that we're creating it, that we are in fact directing the laws in play, that they can be changed. Ultimately, that's the idea here, is that they can be changed, and we can fix new laws in place. We can alter the mechanics of reality, and quantum mechanics is doing that actually. As the overall fundamental understanding of quantum mechanics continues to expand, well, look around in the world, you're going to notice some really weird shit going on. It's really wacky shit, and that's because quantum mechanics allows for us to break free of the old school relativity concept. That relativity concept, the existence concept of relativity, was solid, it was stable, it was sturdy, it kicked ass, it got us to where we are, it allowed us to make the world as we made it, but it's going to change. We're going to grow out of that. We're going to develop a new existence concept via quantum mechanics, and what I'm positing will become directive relativity, and things are going to change. The laws of physics are going to change. If you don't believe it, I'm sorry, but you're going to see it happen in your lifetime. So what I'm positing is when I speak to creating or constructing a functioning paradigm, what I mean is an overall understanding that we have of how this resource technology operates. And synchronicity is the key to that. Values in place cause associations that cause consequential repercussions. That's how it functions, that's how we can get it to function, that's how we can manually operate it, and that's what we're trying to do, especially with the Remnants program. And the initiative overall is working together to develop an overall common construct of a paradigm that we all understand, that we can all share, and that we can make use of. And the more that we do understand it together, the more that we do make use of it together, the more it's going to become functional, the stronger it's going to become resounding in the world. And since we have quantum mechanics in play already, we can just work off that, because it works. It works. Relativity works. Quantum mechanics works. We can pin those two together, and we can explain how that's operating and why. Then we will have directive relativity in play. And that, again, that's going to happen not too long from now. But I guess I'm failing here again, but I'm trying to explain it, is if you understand a person's personality, which of course is going to be very difficult, but it can be done. I've done it. I've been doing it for a long while with a lot of people. You can place values in their environment that will direct their attention given the probabilities of their reactions. And if you can move fast enough to keep up with that, then you can put those in play. You can make that happen. Again, I was speaking of primers and cueing when I got lost, but you can place cues in the environment. The cues are going to be the articles of inquiry, or the objects of inference. Then you place, you gotta be able to place primers, which primers are like to call them locks, locks and keys. Combination locks is the term we used to use. That if you place a few different values in somebody's environment that resound off of each other in a certain way, if you can get them to create a relationship with each other, and you get their attention to these series of values, you can actually construct primers, which are going to be points of reference in a person's consciousness. And then once they have the primers in place, you set cues in their environment at certain times that are going to cause for those combination locks to break, and for them to react in a certain way, and you can actually fix how a person's going to react to it. This is almost like a kind of hypnosis in a manner of speaking, but obviously it's a developing technology. It's just like a Jedi mind trick, pretty much, and we're calling it spot casting because I like the sound of it. So also we're calling it spot casting because that was we were trying to develop an alternative to spell casting, because spell casting, ritual and ceremony, obviously that's not going to get across to people. They don't like it. The Bible has taught them that it's evil, and all that fucking shit. But Spellcasting essentially is just generally, that was a superstitious, that was an existence concept of superstition that allowed for people to use ritual and ceremony to essentially convince themselves that certain things were going to transpire, and then the brain would make it happen. Because, and that's it. That's where I'm coming from, is the brain and your thoughts, your mind, your psyche, and it does exist in the brain. The brain is creating it the brain is, it's difficult to say. The brain is creating it and consciousness is creating the brain. It's both happening at the same time. I guess we'll have to get into that later, but ultimately it's going to be your psyche or your soul that's creating your reality. Of course, you're playing against other people now, and they have fixed rules in play that you can't break. You can't break other people's reality. That's how everybody has the same. All men are created equal. That's the reality. We all have the same level of power in this game, and it's very difficult to violate other people's rules. So, but it can be done to a certain extent. You can't break their rules, but you can bend them. You can bend the rules here, and actually, in some cases, I found that you can actually break them. But that's, at this point, with the values we have in play, that's a virtual impossibility. So we're going to get to that at a later point. But I guess that's the best I can try to describe it. Is that if you have this understanding that psyche is creating reality, then you can play with it. You can make it work. And I've seen it work. I use it all the time, so I know that it's real. And I mean, if you don't want to believe that, eventually you will. So we'll get to that later. In any case, thank you all for watching. Keelah, Taerve, siari. Namaste.